Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Barrens Chat podcast. I'm Sod, and with me tonight is my co-host Cuck. This is a podcast about World of Warcraft by two guys who play. Cuck, a little bit of a small announcement this week. On Tuesday, the same day that this episode drops, we will also be on the Realm Maintenance podcast with Ro. We recorded a short segment with him. Pretty exciting for us. Obviously, his podcast is very large, a lot larger than ours, so it definitely helps us reach a larger audience. So big shout out and thank you to Ro for that.
Yeah, this week was great. Huge thanks to Ro for the interview that he gave us. I thought it was pretty incredible. I would highly recommend all of our listeners at any point, once you finish listening to this one, you can stop right now and come back to it. But definitely check out today, the 30th episode of Realm Maintenance. So that podcast is pretty big. It essentially puts together a lot of the other WoW content creators. I know Ro has done a ton of interviews. If you like listening to our show, he did a fantastic job asking us questions that were informed enough to make me feel like he really watched a few episodes of our podcast and like actually kind of knew a little bit about Sod and I. So yeah, for sure, if you guys are out there listening, give Realm Maintenance a check, especially this week because we're going to be on it. And then also at the end of the year, he does this thing called like the yearly maintenance or something like that. And whoever he interviews he asks them questions, and then we got to ask the question that will be asked to the next group of people. And it seems kind of like this time capsule where we'll make predictions and answer questions that he will reveal later on, and we'll see, like how close we were to it. I think it would be cool to see, like, if there are people who accurately predict big story arcs. I think that would be cool. But yeah, I mean, I digress. Definitely check out Realm Maintenance today as you're listening to this, because we're on it. Yeah, that was amazing. I never would have imagined that we would get interviewed for our podcast at this point. Like, we've been doing this for a year. It's been our hobby. And now, like, we actually got interviewed for it by another content creator. It feels kind of surreal.
Yeah, that was really cool. Probably like the highlight of the podcasting career. I know you and I have been doing this for like a year, and we still have a lot to learn, I feel like, and I think that showed us it too. Like, Ro is obviously very good at what he does, very prepared, and I like just being with that. I learned a lot from it. So, again, thank you, Ro, for doing that, for allowing us to have another platform. That was really cool. And with that, how was your week gaming?
Yeah, this week was another pretty slow week. I feel like everything has slowed down with gaming in general, especially with Blizzard. I've been playing some like random Steam games. This is a great time of the year if you're a Steam gamer, because obviously we've got the Steam summer sale. I got an email with something like 25 different titles that were on my wish list went on sale for the summer sale. So if you're looking for a new game, there are new games out there on sale right now that you can check out. But for Blizzard, we didn't really have anything new. We've had a few cool, like, little tidbits dropped in, and we're going to go through a little bit of that. A lot of kind of Shadowlands beta speculation. I don't know when the date will be, but it's definitely coming. I mean, we're getting down to the wire. There's not a ton of content left to put through alpha before we go into a beta. So yeah, another slow week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have the intro cinematic coming. It's cool. Like, we killed another boss this week, and we got the 7th boss, Vexiona, down to 20 some odd %. So she will hopefully die next week, and then my guild will be 7 out of 12, which is huge. I eclipsed 1 million gold. I've been selling a lot of keys, selling heroic clears with the guild. Really, it's like my main source of income right now, and I've been very fortunate and earned quite a bit of gold doing that, so that's cool. And the right after we ended our episode last week, there was a hotfix that allowed Malefic Cores, which are your cloak upgrade for after you reach rank 15 cloak. And you can now purchase those with Echoes of Nyalotha, which is both good and bad. It's good because you can catch your cloak up all the way to where everybody else's corruption resistance is, which is great. However, it's bad because you also use Echoes of Nyalotha to get essences on your alts if you've already earned rank 3 on your main, and you also use them for purchasing corruption. So that one currency is now used for three things, and to be honest, you really don't earn that much of it. You get a decent amount in your weekly cash. You can get some in your PvP chest, and then like if you're doing your emissaries, maybe you're doing a lot of horrific visions. You can earn a little bit, but it does take time to earn a lot. And with the 2,000 Echoes price tag on the Malefic cores, it's definitely not ideal, and it will hurt. Like if you're chasing that certain corruption and it's for sale that week, you're gonna have to determine whether or not you want extra resist or you want to have that either in your bag or on a piece of gear. So good and bad. Not the end of the world. I certainly purchased some, so my cloak is all the way caught up, which is nice. But good to see that they're still paying attention to retail. We do have that announcement coming next week too. We don't know what that's about, but I mean that should be some news, some stuff to be excited about. Overall, at least retail Azeroth is, I would say, very active and a lot of fun.
Yeah, with retail still kind of coming to a close, it's good that they're still adding things that keep the people who are currently engaged in the content, like you and your guild. You guys are still actively raiding Mythic, and you guys definitely deserve content updates like these hotfixes. It's hard not to think about the stuff that's coming on the horizon, right? And one of the things that we got, I think maybe right as we were recording or right after we recorded last week's episode, there was a good amount of Nathanos voice lines that are pulled from what will come in like a 9.0.1, probably in a Shadowlands pre-patch sort of thing. But it seems like Nathanos is going to be a player in Shadowlands, at least in the pre-patch, to the extent that we will go to the Eastern Plaguelands, probably, back where he was in Vanilla, and probably fight him and his dogs. I think, as someone who got a huge amount of Vanilla in, and I spent a good amount of time in Eastern Plaguelands doing stuff with Nathanos as Horde, that I think that is going to be good. I think anything that brings it back to the roots of the character will help it feel more genuine and a part of the story and the world, as opposed to this kind of like bolted on thing where it's like, all right, now Nathanos is this major player. He's going to be the guy giving you your he's going to narrate some of the world quests in BFA. Instead of that, we're going to find him where he originally existed in the game, interact with him there. I think that's a much better way to handle a character like this. He might even die. We might kill him as a means of getting closer to Sylvanas. We may have to, find notes or some sort of evidence that he has on him to get closer to Sylvanas' plan, whatever it is. But it looks like at the end of BFA, going into Shadowlands, we're going to see Nathanos in the pre-patch.
Yes, please, and hopefully it is the end of Nathanos, because BFA has really just tested my patience with him as a character. You and I were talking about this. Like, they really, I think, do a great job on pre-patches. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. I mean, you hear about the Scourge invasions during Burning Crusade and stuff like that, but like even the BFA pre-patch at the end of Legion was awesome, and it wasn't, like every event was released all at once. Like, you kind of got it in tidbits, like once a week you might get a small event, and it all added up to, like, you went through the Battle of Lordaeron, you went through the Dark Shore event. So all this cool stuff that happened, like it, and we should have a pre-patch obviously at some point with the Q4 release date. I mean, maybe we see it at the end of the summer or at the beginning of the fall, but that's something I'm very much looking forward to. Obviously, there's a lot of Shadowlands information in the release of the intro cinematic or the intro scenario, playthrough scenario. And so I intentionally stayed away from that. All I can tell you about it is that Thrall and Jaina were both there. And I'm really just holding out hope that I get to play through it and experience it. And I'm trying not to watch it. Uh, I mean, maybe if I don't get any information, I know they haven't sent out any alpha updates in a while. So maybe I will try it again in like a couple weeks and then I'll probably watch the scenario. But overall, I think just from people that I've talked to that have checked it out, it seems awesome and very cool. And now that intro cinematic takes place in the Maw, but I don't believe that that is the release of the Zone the Maw. So we're still awaiting that Zone to be into officially beta and move on through the test phase.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it either. I am, on one hand, I'm trying to get what you're saying, kind of that genuine experience without stuff being spoiled. But on the other hand, I'm dying to get alpha. I'm dying to get beta. And if I have to experience some of this content twice, so be it. Just because I want to get in there and help playtest it and share my thoughts and feedback with our little community here. And just kind of continue to build hype about it, because I think there is a lot of good stuff to come in Shadowlands. I would also be, happy to learn that maybe there isn't as much good stuff coming. Like, I would be okay with being disappointed early on because I can maybe save a little bit of my time. But I've already pre-ordered the game. I'm going to be subbing. I'm going to be playing. Hopefully, Sod, if you convince me to come back into the game, I will go back on a purely retail for gold making only and just buy my tokens for playtime, which would be great. But it's tough to resist the urge to just like find the cinematics, look at the lore, look at the text, like look at all the stuff that's coming. Just because we're gonna wait for a long time. It's a question of whether or not is it worth it to see it all at once, or is it better to get these little teasers as they kind of leak out of the data mine stream as we wait? So yeah, we'll see. I will probably end up finding it and watching it though.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch it. Like, you'll hear me talk about it next week for sure. I don't know if you noticed this, but the Dark Moon decks have been released, and obviously, like, if you played launch of BFA, the Dark Moon decks were huge for the economy early on in Battle for Azeroth. So, like, you could see what the Dark Moon decks are called for Shadowlands. They have obviously a tank one, a caster DPS one, agility and strength DPS, and then a healer deck. During the launch of Battle for Azeroth in like the first like 3 weeks before the raid got released, these were it. Everybody was after them. Everybody was buying them. The price was very high, and then kind of got tanked down because everybody was selling them. But those decks, as far as the economy goes, are very huge early on in the game. So if you're looking into maybe making a decent amount of money at the start of Shadowlands, it's probably the way to go. Just figure out what you need to do to be able to make an excessive amount of these, and you can get very rich.
Yeah, that was a massive part of essentially those Uldir raid trinkets. I think almost every class was bringing a Dark Moon Fair deck into Uldir at least, and they were pretty good through most of the raid tier. I remember as a tank, I used mine for a while because I made such a foolish mistake throwing away money on the Blockades deck that I never used, and I always used the DPS deck. But I mean, whatever. Just thinking about that makes me upset. The only way that I can fix that is to start Shadowlands with Inscription to make the cards, because I think those were the people making the most money off of the decks. It was Inscriptionists making cards and making and selling those decks. So yeah, that's the only way I can fix this void in my heart and in my soul, is to rip some other sucker off for a Dark Moon deck when Shadowlands starts.
Yeah, and like a guy that we play with got a Longboy out of it and then still has millions of gold left over that he's been using for game time. He used it to purchase Shadowlands, so you can definitely do a lot with that. And also, a small update, which I'm very excited about, with the Shadowlands professions. Like, a little bit was released on those. Actually, just X out the tab because I'm an idiot. But um, the scrapper is going to be gone, and I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about that. And just that overall, like, there's not going to be an overabundance of trade goods on the market because I think that's what the scrapper did. And also, there's going to be no expulsum farming, so crafting mass amounts of bracers to get your expulsum in order to craft, various raid mats like feasts or cauldrons or stuff like that. So that's a big thumbs up from me. It's also cool to see, like, how obviously it's very early in alpha, but like how you can go about putting specific stats onto items, like if you want crit haste or crit mastery, stuff like that. So those guys are getting a little more in depth, which is definitely cool to see if you're into like pushing end game and end game content and just doing dungeons or PvP or anything like that. Always good to see that because crafting is definitely huge early on in the expansion, and it seems like they're going to try to make it like a big deal as we go through the expansion.
Yeah, I think they did a great job with professions. Like you said, being able to say what secondaries you want on a piece and then to get that is incredible. It's something that I can't believe we haven't gotten until now. The scrapper going away is great. I wasn't really thinking about why it was so good because you gave me your initial opinion before we started recording. And now that I'm thinking about it, when I was playing and crafting my best in slot, I think like legs and boots were for leather workers when I was playing on my monk. I had to do that. I had to buy mats en masse off of the auction house to make a bunch of bracers, to just send them through the scrapper, just to have enough mats to make the not the legendaries, but the best in slots, and then, scrap those, get the stuff back out, make a new one if they didn't have the right stats, and just keep doing that. It was nice that they gave us a socket, but take away the socket and let us choose the stats on it. That is always going to be better. So that's huge. I think one of a better improvement that they're doing on top of allowing you to choose the stats, the base item that you are going to get from, if you're a plateware, from the blacksmith, if you're wearing leather, the leather workers, that base item will eventually be able to be imbued with what they're calling legendary powers. So wherever this comes from, I think it comes from Torghast probably. You'll probably have to find your base item, either make it your own or get it off the auction house and then take it with you through Torghast, get enough materials to upgrade it. But yeah, you will need to rely on a crafter or rely on crafting it yourself. So again, this is something that makes professions more important. This coupled with giving the unpruning of classes, the more linear approach to the way we'll level up. I think narratively that's an improvement. I think systemically we're getting closer to kind of vanilla systems, which is an improvement on some things. So I'm just overall pleased, very much pleased with professions going into Shadowlands. I think professions are going to be another one of those systems that they actually have really refined and are probably going to be a knockout as far as the stuff that's good about Shadowlands.
Yeah, it's like almost, I mean, it's a good comparison with Classic, that they're taking the good things about Classic and the good things from retail, and they're kind of mixing and mashing them together to make what looks like, at least from the outside looking in, and from everybody that's playing it on the inside right now, a far superior game to what we have in both facets of WoW right now, in Classic and retail. I think, like, the amount of people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis that, like, I'm just kind of grinding keys with and raiding with, and like just to talk about Shadowlands and how excited the community as a whole is for this expansion is awesome. I mean, that's like some of the best stuff to do when you're talking about how your launch day is going to go. Like, a couple of guys are already planning on booking their vacations for it. So, I play, and you probably play in like a little bit more of like a neckbeardy community than I would say most of the WoW player base is probably a lot more casual than us, even though I would say I think I'm quite casual. But uh just overall, just I'm so ready, like, and so pumped for this. Like, the more I see, the more I read, the more videos I watch, uh like there's a video out there about like the Titans and the conspiracy of that. If Illidan's going to come back in from Bellular, there's all kinds of information out there to just get lost in, and I could go down rabbit holes and just read for like 2 to 3 hours and just be totally entertained the whole time. And as this goes on, multiple people in my community keep trickling back in, and like I keep, I just get a weekly key done on like another alt. So I have a couple more alts that at least aren't going to get shredded in the opening scenario. So overall, just the game as a whole right now, Guck, if you want me to talk you back into WoW, believe me, I can do it. And I'll get you back in retail in no time.
Dude, honestly, when you tell me you're selling keys, and when I just like hear two of my friends who became part of just like our WoW community, Ishibe and I forget what Chad's in-game name is. I think Rat Boy. I'm not really sure what his in-game name is now. But yeah, like hearing them run keys and hearing you talk about selling keys genuinely makes me want to get back in, just because I can pay for my game time with play time, which is pretty incredible. But also, that part was fun when I was doing it, and I'm sure it's still just as fun. It's just a matter of, like, I don't want to do these assaults. I don't want to get these essences. And I say this every week. The problem I have is how many weekly resets will it take before I can actually just play the game? You know what I mean? That's the issue I have.
So if anybody that's thinking about returning, this is like probably pretty valuable information. So like Guck, you played very limited in 8.3 or 9.3, whatever, 8.3.
Super limited. Like I have my cape. It's ranked up some, but I haven't really I didn't dive into the systems. I didn't dive into 8.3.
Yeah, so you're a little bit ahead of the game because you have Eternal Palace essences. Like a lot of people don't have those. Like you at least have some rank 3s that you can use, which are probably going to be overall DPS bumps from the new essences until you get rank 3 on those, which will hold you over nicely. If you're a returning player and you need to unlock especially if you're focused on your best in slot essences. I mean, they're not totally mandatory, but if you are focused on it, like an essence like Blood of the Enemy, the grind to unlock that is so ridiculous. It's not even funny. So like you have to grind so much honor, and you have to do it in random battlegrounds. And believe me when I say this, those get frustrating, those get old, those are not fun to do. But if you want to have Blood of the Enemy as a rank 3 essence, you have to do that. You have to do that a lot. And it definitely wears on you, and it makes you not want to do it. I mean, there's other essences that you get passively through reputations, which can get frustrating. There's a Mechagon essence, which is actually pretty easy to get right now because you can just spam run Mechagon and Mythic Plus. But overall, like it's the essences that really slow you down. Upgrading your cloak is actually a lot easier. They've definitely made that a lot more doable on alts and returning players just because of the systems that they put in place. And with that, like you can target your corruption that you want to, and you can see when when the specific corruption that you're targeting goes on sale at the vendor. You can do that. So gear is very easy to get if you have a community of people to help you do Mythic Plus and push through that. You can be 460, 465 in less than a week if you want to. And really, it's the essences that are going to slow you down, and obviously the corruption, which is a big deal, but also isn't as big of a deal, but it definitely helps your DPS a lot. You definitely notice it with the flow of your class, like depending on what corruption you're targeting. But it is a ton of fun, like once you start to min-max your character and you get a lot of essences to choose from, and you can play around with different corruption sets, and you have a lot of different gear in your bags to mess around with. That's what makes retail great right now, and I have that on a couple characters, and that's why I'm enjoying myself so much, and I think that's why a lot of the people I'm playing with are enjoying it.
I remember when essences came out, it was actually a really good current system, but it looks like one of the worst previous patch systems just because of the way that it didn't advance with the release of the new patch. You shouldn't have to farm the last patch's raid to get something you need for the current patch. They should have hotfixed something with that. And, sure, it's fine that you can buy it on another character or however they have it worked out, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough,
Yep, it should be all the essences. Rank 3 should be for sale. At the very least for Echoes of Nyalotha, whether you've unlocked them on a main or not. And then the rank 4 essence, which is cosmetic, which is like the prestigious one, right? It doesn't have any character power tied to it. You should have to earn that based on, how you unlocked the essence previously, right? I think that's probably the best way to do it. That's probably the most fair way to do it. I can't believe they haven't implemented it yet. It's hurting. Like, it hurts the game. I mean, like, a lot of people would probably come back to this game, and then, the cloak upgrade helps, all that helps, but like, essences are still a big deal to DPS, to healers, to tanks. They're a huge part of how your class plays, and not having access to them at the same rank as other people that have been playing this patch through and through is hindering them from coming back, because they're not going to be able to push the same content as their friends unless they're getting carried. And, getting carried is nice, as far as catching up goes, and then you're caught up in gear and it's like, well, what the hell am I doing? I still suck. I mean, that's not riveting gameplay. And I think it's hurting the game, and I think it would help the game if they would just allow it to be for sale. Would it be bad because it's on the same currency as the corruption and the malefic cores? Yes, but it would be also a lot more bearable to deal with because you can target your upgrades.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more on all of that. I think the problem is exactly what you said. This would be the fourth thing that you would buy with the same currency, right? Because there's the vessels as well as the corruption and the malefics. Is that all the same currency?
Yeah, so you can buy vessels to get into horrific vision. So if you do farm echoes a lot, obviously you can also do the assaults if you want to earn them passively. The cool thing about buying vessels, though, is it looks expensive buying a vessel, but you actually earn echoes in a vision. So it actually knocks the price down a little bit. I forget. I think it's like 1,000 echoes for a vessel if you factor in the amount that you earn back. So it's not as expensive as it looks. It is still pricey, though, because you don't earn a lot of echoes.
I feel like a lot of this stems from Blizzard taking their old content too seriously. Like, honestly, Eternal Palace is over. It shouldn't be relevant. Nazjatar shouldn't be relevant. But them keeping the essence earning system the way it is basically them making a statement like, no, this content is still relevant for this explicit reason. Like, specifically, this is why we're making you do it. Like, we're doing it for the essence. Yeah, I will expect. I am feeling more and more as time goes on, like reopening my sub and playing BFA, not for BFA, but to play with the community that we have, the four of us essentially that still play WoW, plus the community that you've worked your way into by sticking with retail. Day by day I'm feeling it, just because there's not as much for me to do. And, the quarantine boredom has got me, feeling like I might as well spend some of this time at home trying to sell keys and make a lot of gold that pays for my playtime down the line,
Well, I think this is a good time to end the podcast and get you a 15, and that way you get a nice big 475 item in your weekly cash.
I think that might be the best way to end the podcast. You're totally right. Thank you guys for listening. If you're looking for other stuff to check out, again, please, when you're listening to this, after, before, whatever, check out Realm Maintenance that releases today that's featuring me and Sod. There's some other cool stuff you can look at. There's a new Ashbringer model from the Maldraxxus quest line. There's a new Noble lore video about the Pantheon of Death that he's theorizing. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look at. We thank you guys for listening. As always, check us out on social media at Barrens Chat Pod, or at Saudi LOL, or at Guckyman. Send us your emails, comments, questions, whatever. BarrensChatPod@gmail.com. Check us out on the website, barrenschat.podbean.com. And we will see you in the next one.